I missing here? There's something that I'm missing. Nope. I think we're ready to go live. So I'm going to hit a couple buttons. We'll go live. You guys should be able to hear the sweet intro, and then we'll go from there. Sound good?
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
Welcome to the weekly episode of the Freelancer Codex podcast. Your host, Steven, and co-hosts Mike, Devon, and JD are all set. Join us and tweet your questions at Freelancer Codex. Find us on Facebook at Freelancer Codex, or send emails to freelancercodex@gmail.com. Strap into your javelins and let's drop in.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 118 of the Freelancer Codex podcast. I'm your host, Steve, along here with one of my co-hosts, Devon, and special guest, legendary animator and cinematographer, Tal Peleg. Tal, thank you for being with us. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is a pleasure. We've been talking a bunch on Twitter, talking a bunch online, and I'm surprised you actually agreed to come on the show after knowing about us. So that always surprises me when people are like, "Yeah, sure, I'll come on there." That makes me know that they don't listen because they're like, "There's no way."
I'm surprised you invited me, actually.
Well, it's one of those things where I'm always like, there's no way anyone would say yes, so I never asked. So I asked, and you're like, yeah, and I'm like, really? Are you sure? Like this show? You want to come on this show of all the shows? So we appreciate you being here, Tal.
Much, Steven.
I'm sorry. Sometimes you just feel like you've got anyway. So welcome, everyone. I hope everyone out there is staying safe. I hope everyone out there is practicing their social distancing so that we can get rid of the coronavirus so that our lives can go back to normal. I don't know if things will go back to normal the way they were before this. I mean, this very much feels like a 9/11 type moment in our country to where things probably will never be the same after this. So I hope everyone out there is staying safe. I thought it was important that we continued with the Codex podcast to bring a little bit of joy into everyone. Hopefully it brings joy or frustration. Even if it brings frustration, I'm glad I'm bringing some sort of emotion to you.
Some kind of distraction.
Some sort of distraction. And what better way to do that than with with Tal, who's been in the video game industry for how many years have you been in the industry, Tal?
So film and games combined, I would say probably 18 years.
So 18 years. So you've been in the industry for a while. You've worked with some of So you've worked with some of the biggest developers that there are in the industry. You've been with EA. You've worked with Naughty Dog on The Last of Us and the Uncharted series. Last of Us being one of the most popular and in the zeitgeist video games currently, with Last of Us 2 on the horizon. And I would definitely want to get your thoughts on the HBO show that's been announced. You've been with BioWare. You worked on Mass Effect Andromeda, and then more recently with the Anthem franchise. And we got the amazing cinematics from you and your team with Anthem. And then you are now the cinematic director of Archetype Games. And that's kind of exciting. You go from working at these big studios to kind of start something new with a small team. I mean, is that scary at all? Or are you guys just like ready to, hey, let's do something new, let's do something different and jump in here?
Yeah, no, it's actually more like the latter. I'm pretty excited. It's a lot of factors coming together. It's a lot of our goals, shared goals, trustworthy individuals that have banded together. This is basically various folks from BioWare, Naughty Dog, let's see, 343, and more that I can't say, not yet.
You've got other people coming in.
And yeah, like individuals and strong work ethics. We share the same passion for craft and all that. So, and it's very much people, it's branches from the same tree, and it's really, it's more than just a transition to a new studio. It's what many of us have been essentially wanting to do and are able to do now, and it's a rare moment in all of our careers, I guess.
That's super exciting. And then to have you guys start a new studio, and then all of a sudden be like, all right, you can't come into the studio. I mean, how do you guys get any work done now, being at home all the time, having to call each other to figure out, hey, does this look good? Can I send you an email? Can we jump on Zoom? I mean, that's got to be difficult after just starting up.
Um, eh, kind of. It definitely slows things down, but it's not that critical. There's a lot of uh, networking that we already have at work that we sort of apply um, working from home. Um, so it's just kind of slowing down, but it's not necessarily uh, detrimental or like not ideal, but it's not too bad. A lot of the stuff that we do is mostly on our machines, so it's not like um, you know a lot of communication softwares, Slack, and um, we used to have Skype back at BioWare. And so as long as you over communicate, you should be good. And
Yeah,
yeah,
do you
we do
think
that.
Do you think it would be a little bit harder if you were a couple of years down the line in development that something like this could? Because I imagine that there's our studios that aren't super equipped to deal with this, that are causing game delays to be pushed back. I mean, is it because you guys are so early in the process that it makes it easy? Do you think 3 years down the road it would be like, nope, we've got to push this back because there's no way we can work on it in this capacity right now?
It's a good question.
I'm
I,
asking you to read the future.
yeah, no. So yeah, let me prescribe that.
Yeah.
I think it's true for most studios nowadays. There's a lot of I remember reading an article that um, some developments are conducting a very remote production type of work, and it's actually pretty successful. But I think in the end of the day, if you are working on a big AAA, ambitious AAA game, you probably want to have a certain um, a sizable core in house um, to make that really realized. So I think it's a combination of where we are in terms of the production um, phase wise, and let's see, and I think also just technology wise, things are very streamlined and optimized that we can afford to fall back a little bit. I know other studios that are currently just basically working on shipping a game. They find ways to circumvent that and have shifts where some groups come in, others are working from. So they try to mitigate as much as they can. So so it's not too horrible. Um, so let alone in our current phase of production.
I mean, imagine if you're like Ubisoft and you got like 1,000 people working on Assassin's Creed, on multiple studios. I mean, at least they have it in different studios, but they have some kind of experience where they bring all the parts together. But this has got to be difficult for large studios to really, one, be able to afford to send machines and do all that stuff for people at their homes. Does everybody have that ability at their home, anyways? But
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely a step back. It's not desirable by all means, especially in the scenario you described, for
yeah,
sure.
Well, I think also there's probably a lot of potential for some studios to use this as like, hey, we actually can do this. We can work from home. We can communicate with using all these, online tools that we have, and maybe we can cut back a little bit of that overhead of having to rent a studio space in San Francisco because it seems like everyone has studio space in San Francisco. But I mean, Moon Studios just recently released Ori and Will of the Wisps.
yeah,
That's right.
Amazing game, and they don't have a studio. They're all remote developers working together, and there is precedent for people that have done it, and I think probably a lot of developers might say, hey, maybe we should try that now that we've kind of got our feet wet in that. So I mean, maybe, I don't know. So
Yeah, no, I mean a lot of studios do that. A lot of studios rely on outsourcing, uh, multiple outsourcers and vendors.
mm.
So it's a very common theme to be working remote. Um, I don't know how common it is to work entirely. Every single the entire team, the entirety of the team is comprised of completely remote strands of individuals. But it does seem like it's possible. I just don't know if a AAA
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, yeah, like
high budget.
Moon
That
Studios,
would be
like their
interesting to
games are a
see.
little bit smaller, right?
Right. I think that's more. That's definitely more. It, I think again. I'm not. I don't know for a fact, but I would imagine it's slightly more pliable in that sense.
Yeah. It'll definitely be interesting to see what the coronavirus has effect on the industry. I mean, it's already shut down all of our big trade shows and stuff, and I imagine we'll continue to see shutdowns. But first, Tal, I want to ask you the most important question that we have here today. How are you enjoying Doom Eternal? Because I saw you tweeting about it. So I want your thoughts. I want your quick hot take on Doom Eternal.
Quick hot take. Let's see. I
It can
really
be a
enjoy
long hot take also.
long steaming pile of a take. Okay. Um, yeah, I'm actually really enjoying it. Um, I was pleasantly surprised because I'm not a first person fan, generally speaking. There are some exceptions here and there. Well, since I got there, I used to be a long time ago when it was revolutionizing gaming, PC gaming. I'm talking about like mid early '90s or something. Um, and so I've been a fan of that, but I think the novelty wore off fairly quickly, and I sort of reverted back to preferring third person games. I think it was just because ultimately it was like I kind of felt like it's a weapon tucked to my chin, and it's just gonna kind of like a shooting gallery with visuals and stories largely updating, and so I'm like, okay, I want to try to spice it up a little bit. So that's just me, but
What was it? You just had to feel more of a connection with your character?
yeah, I think so because I think I there's so many like little things that I can't put my finger on it really. Um, it's like what are you mentioning? I think it's like yeah, you see your character, you see the customization that you acquired or you built or found or you work your way towards. You can marvel at it, and I think it's just the fact that because first person it changed later on. Then Half-Life came out, so there's a lot of games that I like it completely transcended over any kind of preference.
Right.
But because many times it just had a gun, it would just end up for me ultimately just the overall feel would ultimately feel like a shooting gallery.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like the same. It became a genre, in fact. But all that being said, Doom is one of those exceptions for me. So like the action is pretty awesome. The presentation is really crisp. The gore is crazy. It's super badass. Doom
Yeah.
guy is just awesome. There's a lot of I it it was already kind of going there in 2016. Actually, throughout the entire franchise, it was already kind of doing that, but it feels a lot more like there's some religious tone to it. You know, like he's a god and he's our savior. There's all those other things that they say there, and you know, I don't want to spoil stuff, but there's some cool beats there that it's just super badass. Lots of
Yeah.
demons.
Yeah. And
I
and I'm
love the
guessing.
slow motion.
Okay. Are the kills the glory kills?
The the glory kills, yeah. Like I think there's a mod there where it triggers if you kind of jump or if you're airborne, and it's cooldown, so it's not like you can abuse it or anything. But it's pretty awesome to see the game kind of max paid into this you know slow motion detail of that moment. So
I'm pretty impressed with how the Doom franchise has evolved, because back in the day, you know, when we were playing Doom, having to load it up on, I don't know how many floppy disks we had to, you know, install Doom from. It was probably 8 floppy disks or something. But you know, going from where it was 2016 and how high, like, I don't think there's another shooter right now that is as fast as Doom. I mean, it just seems like there's no chance, you have no time to breathe, you have no, there's no waiting to reload, there's no waiting for shields to recharge. And I think that's kind of a breath of fresh air for everyone, because I mean, we got used to, like, hey, maybe I'm going to hide behind this rock for a little bit until my shields recharge before I go out there. And Doom doesn't let you do that. So I think it's like, I'm excited that there's a different type of shooter out there, because it seems like a lot of the shooters are kind of tending towards that same very safe, hide behind cover gameplay. And I'm glad that Doom is still like, no, we're just going to do this. We're going to throw demons at you. You can either destroy the demons or you can die. And I really like that about the Doom franchise. But I don't know. I've yet to pick up this one. So
yeah, I mean, how exciting is it to take cover in first person?
Oh, it's so exciting to hide. I don't know if I remember back the days of American Gladiators with people hiding behind the foam barricades from the tennis balls. And like, that's the fantasy, hiding behind the foam barrier right there. That's what we all need in our video games. But so Tally, you're playing on PlayStation. I always enjoyed all your screenshots from Anthem while you're playing on PlayStation. And I wanted to ask you, with the new generation coming up, are you going to stick with PlayStation with everything that we know? Are you going to jump ship, go Series X with Xbox? Where do you see the consoles going here at the end of this year, if they even release at the end of this year?
I'll end up getting both. I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll end up getting both. I think I'll probably lean towards. That's a good question. It just depends what ends up being more appealing. The 360 was far more appealing to me at the time. I did end up having both consoles, PS3 and 360, but I played most of my time on the 360. So this current gen, it flipped around. Yeah, I guess it remains to be seen. So I think I'll naturally look to see what happens with PS5 just out of a momentum, kind of like I had with the Xbox One. So I got that first and then got the PS4, but then I ended up shifting just because I ended up playing more games on it. So I kind of stuck with it.
Yeah. As far as game development goes for the PlayStation, I know they came out and they talked about their new SSD, and to me, I'm like, SSD. I mean, we've had SSDs on computers. Is the new specs of SSD that they're putting out on the PlayStation? Is it going to have that big effect on the industry that they want to have on there? I mean, because the Xbox is a little bit more powerful, teraflops, whatever, but I mean, PlayStation is really saying, hey, this SSD is going to change the way people make games, because you're going to be loading in things so much faster. I mean, is that something that you see is really going to, you know, put the PlayStation, you know, one leg above Xbox for this generation?
Not a tech director, so it's hard for me to say. I think it really boils down to like the developers, what they end up making. So if the first parties are pulling really strongly, like they've done with the PlayStation, then I guess the multi-platform might lean towards Xbox again. So I'm not sure exactly if the SSD is going to make all the difference. It's hard to tell. So
Yeah. And I think Devon and I will be in the same boat, that we'll end up buying both of them like you, because we want to play all the games. It's like, not like I want to play them all, so you have to buy everything. We just need, there's not enough time. So as a cinematic director, Tal, you've been animating and doing cinematics for movies and for video games. while we were getting prepared to talk to you, I was thinking back about animations that I've seen that had like an impact on me through video games, and I always think back to like Warcraft 2 cinematics. And seeing those, like I was blown away when I was a kid, like watching those cinematics, watching, you know, all these boats go across the ocean and all the humans coming up to fight them. And then I think about where we are now in that short of a time, and I'm kind of blown away. Like the cinematics that we see for The Last of Us, the cinematics we see for God of War. I mean, like where do we go from there? Are we trying to achieve the photorealism that we can't even tell the difference between like an in-game cinematic or like, you know, full motion video?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going?
I think this is where we're heading. Undoubtedly. Um, I don't know if this is what we really want, but uh, I guess it's fair to claim that probably more likely than not. I don't know. I guess you can look at old inceptions of games and how they graphically kept pushing the envelope. So,
Yeah.
like, I remember Golden Axe, Final Fight, Street Fighter 2, back at way back in the day, were so ahead of the curve because it's like, oh wow, this looks the visual, the skin color, the jeans, and the background is sort of you know, New York City's faded out, and it you know, it's there's all those things I remember I was blown away by. So you can tell that it kind of went, you know, further in a certain trajectory from Pac-Man.
Yeah.
And you can kind of gauge where it was going. So, you know, once true 3D came in like mid 90s, it basically changed things forever, right? Like, um, let's see, I remember like looking at D&D books back in the day. You know, like you look at the splash front page, and I remember personally always imagining those characters, like the character, the warrior, and the dragon, basically moving, and sort of interpreting that in a VGA monitor. I'm like, yeah, that would be the day.
Right.
And it's kind of like trivial nowadays. Um, so I think so. Yeah, I feel like we want to see more detail that alludes to realism, whether it's stylized or completely realistic. Um, you know, it, when I think about it, Red Dead Redemption 2 was the closest to ever convey anything like that, in my opinion, anyway. The amount of stuff that you could do and the amount of stuff that they accounted for, animation, just not just animation, but like across the board, um, it was pretty amazing. It's not taken. I think it's taken for granted, but as time goes on, I think we'll just start seeing more games doing what they've done and really appreciate how far they've taken things. Maybe we'll end up, you know, maybe Ready Player One is going to be where we go.
We can all wish, right, and hope.
I was meaning in terms of the reality in that movie.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, let's not live in the stacks. I don't know if you want to do that. I mean, wow, we shouldn't even talk about that right now with what's going on, right? We don't want to be living in the stacks. Yeah, and I
No,
think
but
as we
right.
no, you go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think I was really fascinated by Ready Player One. I thought it was amazing. So
Yeah,
I don't think it's far fetched.
No, I think the concept, and eventually, I mean, with the way VR is going, the advances that they're making, I think games like Half-Life Alyx are going to definitely help people, you know, dip their toe into VR. It's going to keep growing if, you know, big studios make quality titles like that. And there are a lot of great titles on VR, but it's just going to keep pushing it forward. It's going to keep, you know, hopefully I don't have to buy like an omnidirectional pad and put it in my house where I don't have enough space. But, you know, just figuring out a way where motion works to where, you know, it takes up a small footprint and everyone gets in there. I think that, I mean, eventually that's where we all, like you said, that's where we want to go. We just want to be transported into like Azeroth with our VR headset and be able to look at an orc coming at us and, you know, be in that cinematic from, you know, the original WoW cinematic. yeah, I would love to do that. I always tend to like the more stylized games anyway, because I don't know. There's something about shooting something that looks really real in video games that I'm like, I like The Division and all, but like when you're just shooting real people, I'm like, I really don't want to just be shooting you. I'd rather go shoot an alien or something, right? So, but that's just me personally. That's just my own personal hang up. So I'm excited to see where things go, because if you look at the cinematics that we've seen from The Last of Us 2, I mean, it blows your mind, like looking at it and being like, there's no way this is in game. Because I remember the days of having like the cinematic trailer, and then when they cut to in game, you're like, whoa, wait a second. I'm playing a completely different game now. But everything's like just a complete transition going from, oh, this was actually real time. And that kind of
Yep.
blows me away.
Yeah, the goal is basically to go into runtime and completely converge into that. Yep, that's the idea. I think there's always going to be some kind of, depending on the game, there's always room to leave pre-rendered cutscenes or something, just because maybe in the future, the near future, like it wouldn't even matter. Um, but engines may not necessarily be able to, not yet, swap between like a ton of people, like a whole crowd scene, and just cut to something else, and then kind of do a memento beat where everything is basically offloaded memory, and you're in a completely different environment. So some things may not be completely feasible yet in that sense, but um, in terms of fidelity, um, it's it's happening already. Like it's completely converged with runtime.
Yeah. And it amazes me how far we've come so far in such little time, and where we will go is going to be pretty awesome. So Tal, I'll see you in the Oasis, and we can hang out there. I don't know what world you want to hang out on, but yeah. So having worked on these big titles, do you think like as your kids grow up, Tal, you're gonna have like cool dad street cred with your kids, or are they just gonna be like, whatever, dad, I'm playing this mobile game that's way cool. Like, I mean, hopefully you're gonna get some cool dad cred from that, right?
I hope so. We'll see. I mean, that would be interesting to see when my son grows. Like he's not really into The Last of Us yet, just because.
I hope not.
No, no. I mean, I don't think he even knows about it, so he's not allowed to know about it. So, and I'm not the one not allowing it.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean,
So
I no, go ahead.
and I've always wondered, as you know, as your kids grow up and they get older and older, like what games are you letting them explore their own games that they're interested? Are you like kind of feeding them like, hey, this was a classic when I grew up, this is Sonic the Hedgehog? Like, how are you introducing them to video games?
Little by little, I guess. It, it's kind of a bit of both. Like it's what they resonate with, and then try to sort of introduce them to, oh hey, this is Mario, um, and try to see if it clicks. My son likes Fez a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, it just clicked. So yeah, it's a work in progress essentially.
So I hope when they grow up they can be like, yeah, my dad worked on this really cool game, and they'll be like, what game is that? We're all playing, we're over here. So one of the things that I was very surprised about with my kids is they latched on to Minecraft so fast, and it's a game that I never even gave any thoughts about. I saw it, I knew what it was never interested, and the three of them, my boys, have gone crazy over it, and they just build these crazy things, and they do it so fast, and I'm like, we have like 150 games through Game Pass. It's like you can try all these games, and they're like, no, we're just gonna play Minecraft. Like, okay, if that's what you want to play, then I'm glad they're being creative. They have a game that they can be creative in. So
I will say I was giving my son the controller when I played Red Dead Redemption 2, and so he was basically getting a kick from uh, moving, traversing with the horse inside a lake, and
oh,
just just roaming around and seeing the ripples, and it's very very funny because I get off of those like VFX and physics in runtime in game. You probably saw I don't know if you did, like some of my tweets were like just munching over the ripples of water and how we've done things in Anthem that was actually pretty awesome. So it was a little interesting to see that like father like son.
Yep, and they're like, this is the part of the game that we enjoy, and that's one of the things that we always do in games. Like, all right, let's go see what the water physics look like, what the water tech looks like, and then we'll know really, where this game stands, because it's all about the water physics.
Always about what?
It's it, everything has to be built around that.
Yeah.
My youngest son, he likes. He's 5. He likes to just make things explode. He's really into Crackdown 3 because he just likes to go in, steal people's cars, drive around, and then he'll be like, "Look," and he pauses it to look at the TV, and then he unpauses it right before he's gonna run into another vehicle and explode. And he just loves doing that. He doesn't know anything
Yeah,
else.
it's
He
just
just
sandboxy silly stuff.
yeah, he
Moving
just
around now.
likes to
Yep.
make things explode and just have a good time. I mean, he's 5, so. But
You better keep an eye on it though, Devin, just in case. Like, where are the lighters at? Who took the propane? So I wanted to get your thoughts, Tal, also on the announcement of the Last of Us HBO series. Is this something you're like, hey, I need to be a part of this? You want to go over there and help out on production of the series?
No, I'm good, but I thought it was awesome. Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was kind of showing how great of an impact the game had to like ultimately be picked up by HBO. Whether it was initiated by HBO or Naughty Dog, either way, it's pretty amazing. I mean, HBO packs a pretty prestigious portfolio. They don't mess around, so
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
Certainly do not.
So I'm excited that if Last of Us gets picked up, then it feels like it's going to be very similar to what Game of Thrones did for other fantasy genres. That everyone's going to want to be looking for. Okay, we can see that this works. Hopefully, if the Last of Us show works, I mean, this is still really early, so tons of things can happen. A lot of shows get announced and then nothing ever happens. But hopefully with something like Last of Us, it'll be like, hey, yeah, and we also have the Showtime Halo series that is in production right now. I haven't heard if they stopped production on that yet or not, Devin. But hopefully other, genres, other IPs will get picked up and we'll see these series that we've always been talking about. When we look at the Anthem short Conviction done by Neil Blomkamp, that's like something like, hey, we need more of this because this is amazing. This was this tiny little slice that Neil made, and it's like, I would love to get a full series done in this style.
Mm-hmm.
And and that would be awesome. Hopefully, if Last of Us is a success on HBO, then we'll get a lot more of that stuff, because hey, we all need more video game content to consume, right? There's not enough of it. We need more. So.
Absolutely. No, I'm completely with you. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I hope it's successful because I mean, I was basically part of the original game, and so I'm pretty confident it's going to be the next big thing. So
Awesome. I like to hear that.
Pretty cool. Are they using the original characters, or are they just doing it set in the Last of Us world? I didn't read the full press release, or did they not explain that? I'm not sure.
They will be using, from what I've read, they will be using the characters, and it will be a sort of a bridge between 1 and 2.
Okay.
So that's why everyone's been photoshopping Hugh Jackman up as Joel. So I think that's what
Right.
the current fan casting is for Joel, is Hugh Jackman. So, but he could just look like Logan from Logan, and then that's pretty much, that looks like Joel right there. So he's already got the look down.
Yeah, there were some shots there that I was like, oof, that brings me home.
Yeah.
Like just shot in the truck where they were driving. So
It gave you all the feel. So thinking back on that time, Tal, while you were working on working with Naughty Dog. Currently in the news, there's been a lot of talk about Naughty Dog in particular, on the topic of crunch, and just what do you think the industry is getting better with crunch? Do you think it's something that still needs to be worked on? Do you think crunch is bad? I guess that's something that we always assume, that everyone hates crunch, but I'm guessing that a lot of stuff probably gets done during crunch time.
Yeah, you pretty much answered that. Uh, yeah, I think generally, I I think it's gearing towards getting better. Um, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much and when it'll evolve. Um, if you look back, there's been a few companies that were notoriously slave drivers, and they completely turned a leaf over, and then like many years ago. So it doesn't mean necessarily that the entire industry changed, but um, I just think there's a whole lot more awareness for work-life balance, and it's probably a growing weight in all of this. So yeah, we'll see how much of that uh, will help keep things in check. But I think it's important to, like you kind of pointed out, that there's a lot being done during crunch, and so it's pretty delicate. So I'll basically say it that it's important not to swing the pendulum too far to the other side,
Yeah.
because like not every studio that crunches gets the best title out. So that you know, so this is a bad case. Actually, every crunch is bad. Crunch, especially, is bad. But I feel that games that swept awards like wall to wall and dominated all our titles uh, across the board, and not just one category. In awards and the reputation, have had to have some level of crunch. So I think the problem is really when overtime is completely disregarded, or abused for weeks or months on end,
Yeah.
with no apparent intent on relenting. So a studio like that will ultimately drive good people away. So, but like I said, on the other side, if you have really strong personalities or driven, passionate people at a studio that sort of bars any like second over 5 o'clock because
Yeah.
we don't want to get any bad press, but people want to actually improve on their craft, then they would lose people too. But it's at least they're not abusive, so you can look at it that way.
So
So
you're
yeah, I
saying
think
it's complicated.
it's basically, I think, I think unchecked and abusive overtime um, is a problem. That's for sure. Yeah, if it's not regulated, if it's not um, if it's not addressed, it's not really regarded as a problem, then yeah, it's bad, and then it,
Yeah.
it goes out of control.
I think
It's just
yeah. I mean, a lot of overtime is not fun, right? Steve and I, we've worked because we used to work together, and we have worked months on end, 7 days a week, doing 70 plus hours a week. It gets old after a while, and you're just like,
oh, absolutely.
can this just be done? I mean, it's good for a while because you're like, oh, it's good money. As long as you're getting paid for that overtime, then it's good. But after a while, it's like, that money is not really worth it right now. It just it drags on, and you're like, then once you get to that point, then things, your work ethic kind of tends to go a different direction, and things get missed or aren't done as best as they can be because you're just in that constant grind. And yeah, I mean, it is definitely a difficult thing, I think, for studios to figure out that good balance of a good crunch versus never ending ridiculous amounts of crunch that people sleeping at the studio, working 100 plus hours
Yeah,
a
that's
week.
that's BS.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. I think this is why there's the literal operative word balance,
Yeah.
work-life balance. And I think as long as that's basically you weigh the project with the morale and rallied people, I think that's a good combination. And this is something that many of us are very much on, I would say at least on a similar page. So that's a good thing. But yeah, once you tip the scales either way, obviously, you know, if if it's super easy,
Yeah.
you'll probably be out of a job because your title may not like sell unless, hey, all the power. So it's great, but obviously the problem is where it becomes abusive. And um, yeah, and there's no sense uh, of trying to mitigate things and trying to be more effective and just double down. In fact, so for sure.
So how do you manage your work life, your family life, what your projects that you have at home? Are you able to just turn off everything once you go home? You're like, all right, not thinking about how to animate this face. I'm not thinking about why this eyebrow looks funny in this shot. I'm home, and now I'm going to be home with the family. Are you able to do that, or is it just constantly in the back of your minds like that dang eye just looks wrong?
I actually don't know how to answer that. Like that's the $1 million question. Um, uh, I think like you get to a point where you train yourself to reel in and focus on things at home, and I think it, it's a certain level of professional maturity that you're not just like ruminating over what's happening, creatively at work and how to. There's some good dose of uh, efficiency in that, but if it's an overdose, then it's not really. Yeah, you can't really be at home. Um, so as long as you manage to separate that mentally, then I think um, it's the key to uh, focus on everything else at home, and that includes hobbies, quote unquote, that are more of the same at work.
Yeah. And speaking of hobbies, so you have been working on this Dante's Inferno. Um, I, I don't know if you call it a fan fiction, or is it because I mean you're like, I guess you're a fan, so it's a fan fiction CG animated short. What about Dante's Inferno has like driven you to do this? Because that looks like a whole nother job to me. Like what drives you to go to a one job and then be like, all right, I'm gonna do this whole other job just for me? I mean, why do that to yourself?
It's insanity. That's it.
Okay,
No. Well,
that's
yeah,
the
that's
easy
that's
answer.
the
I like
short.
it.
That's the short answer. Um, so it's many things. It's many things that hit home real good with the game. Uh, it's the story. It's the I guess the twist that they had where they made it a sort of a crusader setting as opposed to what the original poem was. Um, it's a narrative of it's an arc of redemption. This is why I called my short Dante's Redemption. It's kind of a straightforward, but at least it's a deviation from the actual title. So it's not really. So this is not Dante's Inferno, or like literally authored by EA or anything. So
Hmm.
um, I I think most fantasy games take a lot of inspiration from D&D back in the day, at least. Like that was you had Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons um, and if you kind of think about it, fantasy games have some theological footprints. Like priests, angels, demons, or uh, there's something like that. There's some nuggets of that, and so with Dante's Inferno, they went full blown Catholic,
Yeah.
which was pretty unique, and they went all out, grit, dark, the whole thing, and so I think that was pretty compelling to me. Um, yeah, there's so many things. The combat was really awesome. Uh, the incredible move sets. They uh, it's the combination of VFX, the slow motion, like that emphasized. That's why I mentioned that with Doom Eternal. It's done tastefully. I think Shadow Mortar did the same thing. Um, but but basically, like Dante's combos and move sets that were just awesome. Let's see, Graham McTavish. He's basically voicing Dante. Uh, I knew of him before before the game. He was uh, uh, he was doing other things, some TV and movies, and I think he wasn't on Uncharted as well. But with Dante's Inferno, I became like a huge fan. Uh, yeah, it was a great powerful delivery. He had a really good range, great acting. So yeah, it as you can tell, it totally resonated with me.
Yeah.
Just all around the whole package. I actually wrote a lot about it on my website. It's in a page called Behind the Scenes, and it goes in depth about all of that.
So this is obviously something that's inside of you that you have to get out. Like this isn't something that you'll just be able to ignore, right? This is like no matter what, you've got to finish this story. You've got to finish the redemption, and I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome that EA is letting you do that. First of all, because that's kind
Absolutely,
of yeah. Um,
oh, it's amazing.
because that's unheard of, right? For them to be like, yeah, sure, go ahead, go for it, do it. So that's really cool. I'm excited to see when Act Two drops, and people can go to your YouTube page to watch Act One and the stuff that you did there with the team that you have. So I am definitely excited to see more. And I know Devon had a couple questions about tools
Sure.
that you use, because really the only animation tool I have ever used was that flip notebook with the DSI. I did some animations in that. That's the only animations I've ever done. So, what tools do you use to get started if you want to get started in the industry?
Yeah.
Well, it depends what role you want to go for. If it's an animation, then basically Maya is your go-to program. Motion Builder is another thing that is being used in industry as well, but Maya is primarily the master race um, program.
Software. Yeah.
Yep.
Was there like so you guys are using Maya, or I mean that's what you recommend anyways? Have you seen since I mean because Autodesk purchased them a while ago? That was I don't even know how many years ago. Um, um,
Yeah, from Wavefront.
yeah, it was quite a while ago, but so I'm always interested to see whether people prefer Maya, Houdini, those kind of things. Um, I know a lot of people use like modeling for 3ds Max, that kind of stuff. I just always like to
Right.
talk to people about what kind of software they like to use, what they recommend for people trying to get into the industry. I mean, obviously you have tools like Blender, which is free for people to try and learn, but it's also difficult to sometimes change software, or can be to change software midstream when you're used to how something else works. But was there?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, you were
Uh,
gonna go ask
I
a
was,
question.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, is there like, because I've talked to people before, like, oh, they recommend different art programs or different schools or things like that. I mean, you started in the film industry. Was that something like you studied beforehand to kind of get into with VFX, that kind of stuff, or um, was there something that helped get you in that door to get started?
Um, so back in the day, you kind of wanted to be like wearing a lot of hats. So, if you only knew how to animate and you didn't know how to just model basic uh,
Mm.
faces or I don't know, stuff like that, then it would probably not be enough. Nowadays, it's mostly it's great to wear multiple hats, and there's a lot of people who are doing that. But there's a lot of uh, leaning on specialties.
Yeah.
So back at the time, it was kind of different than how it is nowadays. I think I would assume that if I were to start today, I think it would be more like, oh, I want to be a modeler,
Yeah.
so I have Modbox and ZBrush and
Yeah.
uh,
Focus on those.
Substance and focus on those. Yeah, and I think it's kind of like how people also end up um, like multi-hat, whereas like they end up sort of in a primary hat, so it's kind of like Red Dead where you use just one hat and you're like, I'll just collect the other ones, award them, but I don't know why I went there, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I mean I understand. Like as you're going, right, you're gonna learn different things and sometimes transition and pick up, different skill sets as you're going. I think it's interesting, before when I was like, trying to get into the industry more and stuff. It was just about, like you kind of said, like wearing multiple hats and getting experience doing many different things to try and get in the door, because they don't have as large studios. They didn't need large studios back then like we have now. Not that you need a large studio to make games, but we talked about Ubisoft and having 1,000 developers working on huge games. You got companies like 343 with 500 people. Granted, they're all not working on Halo, but the video game anyways, but they're working on different things. So I mean, it's good. It's interesting to see that, more specialized. It's kind of the way you go. I guess you got to figure out what you want to do, right?
yeah, it's probably the case. That's my personal advice. I mean, I can speak for myself more than anything that I'm originally I've been a painter, and so I was always very much gravitated towards animating that painting, and so I started like uh, moving on to 2D programs. It was back in the DOS days, and then it was like in Windows, and then 3D Max came out, and then 3D Studio Max, and sure enough, I like if you fast forward many years later, I was fascinated by compositing, which is a whole different beast than 3D um, at- in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can work in live action, like it doesn't necessarily have to be with 3D. Um, and I started getting gravitated towards lighting, and so I find myself naturally just latching onto things. But it's not like, oh hey, I just want to learn that, and it's okay. I know a few things, but that's it. Like I kind of, this is just me, but like I it's kind of an OCD thing where I'm like, if I'm really liking it, I'm sort of on a tangent. I have to like really exhaust it, sort of thing. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Tal, I have and maybe you can't answer this because I was thinking of while you guys, this popped into my head. It's a very specific Anthem question, so if you can't answer it, that's fine. You don't have to. But
probably won't be able to, but okay.
you can either laugh or you can nod your head, and no one will see you. So in Anthem, you guys did a lot of the facial capture, facial animation. For the longest time, I didn't know any of that was in the game because the helmet that I chose to put on did not have a visor that flipped up. And sometimes at night, I'm like, I bet the animation team was like so mad that this visor did not flip up because I played this entire game not even knowing that there were animations happening.
Oh, are you talking about like the transitions where you kind of gear up and you see your character kind of like
Yes.
Oh, specifically that.
Well, no, he's like
Um,
any of the scenes where the character has their helmet on, where the visor would come up and you could see their face reacting to the conversation. Steven, his character had a helmet on that did not have that option, and so he did not know for the longest time that there were.
And I did it, and sometimes I would just lay awake and after I figured that out, like after I beat the game and put like 100 hours into it, I put on the normal default helmet that actually has the visor that flips up.
that's right.
And I sometimes I wake up and I'd be like, man, I bet the animation team was just like so mad that only one helmet would actually open up to where you can see the
Oh
face.
no, we knew that. That was very known. Yeah, that was. So I guess I could answer that. That's. I thought it was something worse than that. But
Oh
no,
no,
no, that.
I'll save that all for later.
No.
Yeah,
Because it has
that's.
to be frustrating for the person that animated that, right? That it's like, oh, these right circumstances have to be in place for this player to see all this hard work that I did.
You could say that. Yeah, I think we at the time we sort of cared about other issues. So it was one of those things where like, okay, we'll let that go because the majority will just play their first run and see the most of it anyway. So by the time, because if they skip it and then like, okay, now let's play with this new gear, um, then SOL basically.
Right.
But as far as like showcasing our work later on and say, hey, this is what we did, then at least we can get a shot at that. So that was the mental uh, comfort upnote kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no, it was what it was.
yeah, I messed it up because I got the special edition with the Legion of Dawn
Legion of
helmet,
Dawn.
and I equipped that like right away. So I didn't even know for the longest time. And I just sometimes that thing like that keeps me up at night. I'm like, man, I didn't get to see that for like the
It
first
was a
100 hours.
fun
Anyway,
conversation when Steven figured that out.
I'm like, the helmet opens up? What? No one told me. Anyway, Tal, we have taken up a lot of your time, and we really appreciate you hanging out with us. I had this whole other quiz prepared that if you had a couple more minutes,
Oh
we
yeah,
could
yeah,
get
no,
into.
yeah,
But
sure. Let's do that.
okay, I love doing stupid little games. Devon knows that I love doing stupid little games because I'm super competitive. It would have been a little bit easier if Mike was here because for going two, you guys are just going to be going head to head. So what I did, because this is an audio podcast, I put together a bunch of iconic sounds that play before the intros to TV shows or to movie studios or to video game consoles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the sound.
Goodness.
Yeah, this is really good. Like these are super easy. So you guys should be able to get these like no issue. Like chat can play along also. So all I need you to do, I'm going to play a sound from my soundboard, and then you'll just yell your name, and then whoever yells it first, they get to answer, and then we'll see how many of these you guys can get. I mean, it's a super serious game, lots on the line, and all that fun stuff, right? So again, you just have to yell your name, and then and then you get to guess what the sound is. All right. So this is the first sound that I picked up. So you guys should know this one pretty easy, I hope.
Devon,
Go ahead, Devon.
Law and Order.
That is incorrect. That's not Law and Order. Cal, do you want me to play this again?
Oh, that goes.
No, I'm probably gonna fail this miserably, so I'm just gonna wait and see if I hit anything.
All right, I'll play it one more time. I'll play it one more time for you because since there's only two of you, I guess if Devon got it wrong, then he's not going to be able to answer again. Oh, come on! Like seriously, this could be like mainlined into
We're
our
not
veins.
audio people. What are you talking about?
Okay, so this is the Netflix opening.
Oh, yep.
Oh, I don't have Netflix.
See?
What? You don't have Netflix?
No.
Wait a second, Tal. How do you, in 2020? How do you not have Netflix?
Got more important
I have
things to do.
HBO and other things, but not Netflix. I know it's it's a big thing.
That is a big thing. All right, so that was all right. This one should be a little. Maybe you won't have this one either. So here's the next one. This one
Yeah,
should
TV
be.
shows. I'm gonna. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
All right, no more TV shows. Here we go.
Devon?
Nothing. Blank. I'll play it one more time.
Devon.
Yeah, maybe something from Final Fantasy. I don't know.
Cal, do you have a guess?
You picked the wrong game for us, Stephen.
There's a very famous code associated with this company.
Nami.
That is the Konami tone.
Oh wow, that's right.
Yeah, the Konami
Except
from
now
a
they're
very,
just an image now.
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so here, man. All right, this one you guys
If
should
it
get.
was mute, I would be able to tell you it's Konami.
All right, here we go for the next one. This one, man, I don't know if you guys will get this one now. Now you guys leave me doubting. Here we go.
Mario. Oh, Tal. Mario
No.
is who wants to answer it, basically.
So this is actually the opening. This is the original Game Boy when the Nintendo logo would drop.
Oh, that's right.
Not also the coin?
It is very, very
Close.
similar. It
That's
is
true.
super
I did
similar.
have the Game Boy, the original one.
Yep. So that is okay. Here we go. Here's the next one. Michael from chat is yelling Game Boy, so he knew that one. All right. Michael stole my Game Boy and took it to school one time. I was very upset. All right, here we go. This one's gonna be super easy. If you guys don't get this, I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, it seems that it. Okay, Tal.
Now,
Nintendo.
now I think
That
you're
was
just
a joke.
trolling me.
Yeah,
All right, so that's like,
So,
all right,
yeah.
here we go. This one, here's the next one. This one's going to be super easy. Hopefully everyone gets this, or I will be super embarrassed.
Tal.
Cal,
20th century.
Yeah.
that is 20th Century Fox. That is correct.
Doesn't
I was afraid that
exist
if I,
anymore. No.
no, it doesn't. I was afraid if I had that clip going along too long, I'd get banned from YouTube. All right, last two here. This one you guys should get, hopefully. Here's the next one.
Tal.
Cal,
I'm asking me. PlayStation.
that is
Oh, PlayStation
PlayStation.
2.
That is correct. That is the PlayStation. Then you just follow that up with the Tony Hawk game, and then boom, there's my childhood. All right, last one. Here we go. You guys should get this, hopefully, and this will be the major tiebreaker. All right, even though you guys aren't tied.
Tal.
Devon.
Tal,
Xbox 360 or
that is
Or
the
does it matter?
360. That is correct.
360, Yep.
Tal,
Xbox.
congratulations on
so we
dominating
tied it.
this.
we tied it.
Congratulations on tying with Devon. Devon is he's a sore loser, so we'll just say that you guys tied.
It's
Tal,
true,
thank you
I am.
for-
Steven knows.
Thank you for playing this dumb game with us because
Oh, thank
yes,
you for
is
making
dumb.
it easy.
The second one was a little easy. I had a couple others on here, but like, would you guys recognize the Windows 95 tone if I played it?
Yeah. Do you
I
have the DOS chime?
I do not have the DOS chime. The other one I have Stranger Things. Oh, how about this one? You guys should know this one.
That's the
I actually
original
can hear it.
Xbox.
No, this is not the original Xbox. I have that one, but that's not it. I'll play it one more time. I'll turn it up here.
Oh, Anthem.
Yep, that is the opening to Anthem. So, Devon, you should have known that. You spent how many hours in
thought it
that
was
game?
doing the bzzz, like the start. I've spent close to 400 hours in that game. So
Hold on, do that again, Devon. What sound did you make? Because I'll add that to the
one
quiz.
show a day, Steven. You didn't catch it on time. What can I do for you?
Well, Tal, we really appreciate you hanging out with us again. Hopefully, we can do it sometime in the future. I hope you guys over at Archetype Games, you guys are able to continue despite what's going on in the world with the coronavirus. But good luck on development of whatever you guys are working on. I'm super interested and excited to see what you guys bring up using brand new IP from Wizards of the Coast. So I'm very, very excited to see what you guys make up in the next. I mean, you guys are pretty early in development, so I'm going to give you guys to like 2021, the end of 2021, before we see the new game.
You're on.
That is plenty of time, right? Plenty of time to make a video game. Plenty of time.
They're making
That's
a
how video
AAA
games are
game,
made.
Steven, not a AA game, right?
I know how video games are made, and it takes not that much time. Okay, so
Yeah, right.
That's a good deal. No, thank you guys for having me. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
all right. And until next time, chat. There's a Shaper Storm on the horizon. We'll see you on the other side. I'll play this real quick.
Thanks for listening. You can find us on Twitter at Freelancer Codex, on Facebook at Freelancer Codex, or through email at freelancercodex@gmail.com. Join the Discord through the link provided at